So today I'm joined by my team, and I'm going to hand over to Bhav first to introduce herself and her Sikhi journey.
Okay, hi guys, I'm Bhav. My Sikhi journey started from being born in a Sikh household, really, which was the biggest blessing because of the exposure to Path and Kirtan from a young age. And obviously, I think a lot of us watched like the basics of Sikhi videos growing up, but I feel like I joined quite late to that party. So all of a sudden, really, I just wanted to learn about Sikhi, more about our history, and I started to realize that Sikhi was not really what I thought I knew and what I grew up with. So I started to question, well, what is Sikhi then? And what is the Guru's way? Quite quickly, I think I started to realize that the version of Sikhi a lot of us grow up with today, or my generation at least, is quite an English system. Really a random version of Sikhi based on other people's perception, which has influenced our understanding of Sikhi. So I wanted to know for myself, and the only way I could have done this was reading Gurbani myself and looking into our history. I started doing Japji Sahib, and I think a lot of us are scared about doing that, but just throw yourself in there. I feel like that's the best way to do it. And yeah, just really trying to grasp the authentic way of Sikhi and how our gurus live.
So, Bhav, you've been doing Seva with me since January now for Sikhi Class, I think, right?
Yeah, around January time, yeah. I just remember you texting me in January time, like, oh, do you want to control or have a little go at doing some tweets, starting up a Twitter account, just see how you feel. And after we started it up together, it just kind of blew up from there. Really, I really enjoyed doing the tweets and and just getting involved. Yeah.
And then we also have Sim with us. And Sim, you can introduce yourself and your Sikhi journey as well. And you started with us recently, so you can let everyone know how it's been for you as well.
Yeah, thanks for that, Bab and Sim. So my Sikhi journey was a little bit different to everyone else's, I believe it to be, because like Bab, like Simran, I was also born into a Sikhi household, but it was different in the sense that at the age of 11, my older sister had asked for a gutka that was a Japji Sahib gutka with English translations, and she did it for a few days, but I also wanted to prove that I could, read Bart. I wanted to be involved. I was like, you know what, why don't I just do it if she can? Because I woke up really early. And the first few days I was doing it because I felt like I should do it, like I've started now, I can't stop. And then after a few months, it became this thing of I really wanted to do it. There was something about the Bart, the Gurbani, that was just making me really want to read more into the Bart. I felt like, I could be Amrit Chak, this is it, I'm doing the Bart and everything. And then when I grew up, I also realized that there was actually, it was different to what I assumed it to first be. Rather than just only doing Seva and Bart, there was a lot more to it, as we all know with our Sikhi journeys. And I feel like now I'm at this part where I just want to learn more, because I realized there was huge gaps in my learning and my understanding of what Sikhi and the ethos of it and all the fundamentals of Sikhi rather. So I actually remember being, I don't know, when did you ask me? March.
I think it was like a month ago. It must have been like
Yeah, I think it's been over a month now.
So that's when the journey started. I was offered by Simran, and I just thought this is the best step in the right direction. It's something that I would love to be a part of, because you're just doing that bit of seva, and it's not like just me watching YouTube videos. Now I get to actively help and put out a side that hopefully youth can relate to and make that little bridge a bit more easier to understand. So I was
and we're still all learning together as well. It's not
Yeah.
like we're experts, or we're still learning together, which is really nice as well to do.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, right? Because even now, like I've been doing this for a year now, and I'm still learning. So it just shows that we've got a lot of learning to go, for all three of us, working on this. But basically, the basis of this podcast is so that people kind of get to grips with who they're watching or listening to, or who's writing the posts, right? And then also, because one, I think that's important, because if you are consuming that information, then you need to know who you're allowing in your sangat. So essentially, we're kind of like sangat to people that are listening, so they should know really who's behind the scenes. But also because I want people to have a little bit more of an insight into what we're doing or what we're looking to do in the future. What is our goals with this? And I think I will kind of start by just saying, at the beginning of starting Sikhi Class, it wasn't, I'm not going to lie, it wasn't for it wasn't for anyone other than myself at that point, mainly because I thought if I just make this Instagram account, I'll be able to put up posts and then just read through them, jog my own memory, and it'll be fine. And very quickly it turned into something that people were messaging me about, asking me questions about. And at that point, for me, it was like I was researching answers to people's questions so that I could reply to them. And then it just became this massive form of seva, where now we're doing podcasts with people on a weekly basis, talking about big topics, just creating this platform for people to discuss what they feel needs to get out there and needs to be communicated within our Sangha. So creating that safe space for people to discuss what they feel is necessary and needs to be put out there was a very important form of seva that we're doing at the moment as well. But you two have been taking over Twitter recently, and if anyone hasn't followed our Twitter, it's just at Sikhi Class, isn't it?
Just before we answer that, I just want to say it just goes to show from the response you've had on Instagram, like it goes to show how many people are actually interested or do have questions, and that, you know, they do want to know more about Sikhi. So that is why you decided and we decided to open these other platforms like Twitter, and now TikTok as well.
Yeah, TikTok as well. Yeah, we did that the other day.
Yes. Yeah, just a casual thing. We did that the other day. Yeah, we just opened TikTok, you know.
Yeah, just you know. But even with TikTok, like, I feel like that we're very mindful of the content that we put out, because that is very important to us.
Yeah.
But the reasoning is because the information that we're providing should be open and available to anyone who would require it, who wants to allow it in their Sangha and in their presence. And so opening a TikTok, which is like very popular at the moment, is kind of the next step. But yeah, Twitter, talk to me. What have we been doing?
Okay, so how it started off is I actually took a lot of the roles from Bhav, so I was a bit later on to the Twitter scene. But what was going on at the time was posting quotes and hukum. So I feel like personally, even when I knew Simran was starting off the Sikhi class, the post that resonated with me the most were the hukum posts, because I haven't seen necessarily any other Sikhi accounts do that so far, and there was a lot that I didn't know. So I felt like, wow, this is really important. It's good to get the word out there. If these are the hukums, and then be put into English in a way that our generation can understand, and people like from us from Western countries could understand better. I feel like that was a really good thing to just put out. So they're part of it, and also the quotes that Simran was finding or either creating, or wherever she was getting them from. I think they were really popular on Twitter. I feel like even Bhav told me, yeah, most of the time you'll see that they get a lot of good likes, numbers, retweets. They go quite viral on Instagram as well. I feel like the quotes were quite popular because it just feels nice to have those Sikhi quotes that you can relate to, because I know other religions do have posts and tweets and quotes where they can relate to. They put it on their stories and stuff. So I felt like this was our own, and it was to do with Ardaas and Waheguru. So I feel like that's why perhaps the generations relating.
Yeah, people can relate to the quotes, and we just want to be able to bring Sikhi to people's doorsteps. You know, they go on their phone, a quick scroll on Twitter, and they see a really lovely quote that is to do with Sikhi, and yeah, people can just relate to it. So that is important.
And then, yeah, what about TikTok? You guys are on TikTok now as well, holding that TikTok account. It's basically the same thing, isn't it, with the quotes?
So TikTok is just a space where we can post some quotes, you know, with some really nice images.
For now, we some of the quotes are informative, right? Some of the quotes do have like lines from Gurbani. It wouldn't just be taking them from thin air. So I feel like for now the quotes are, we've done one and it's doing quite well, so we'll carry on expanding on that and seeing how that goes. I think it would be nice if we could have short like little pictures and text on top, maybe tell a little story for when it's a special occasion like the Sakya Gurpurab. But I think we're taking it as
it comes.
As it comes, yeah.
And from the response we get
over this pandemic, obviously at places of worship were closed, temples were closed, gurdwaras were closed, and we're meant to be going there to get all of our source of knowledge. But I remember one of my first few videos of basics of Sikhi was by Jugraj Singh Ji, explaining how this is meant to be like the gap, the bridge that young Sikhs can come and find out things about Sikhi. And he goes, this shouldn't really be my job. This should be the Gurdwara's job. Like when you go to church, you have priests, people will have their own pastor, people have a good relationship with their priest, but maybe a language barrier or people feeling like they're not religious enough. I think maybe there is that thing in our youth, but they don't think they can just walk up, go to the Gurdwara and talk to the Granthi necessarily. They might feel overwhelmed and do matha tek and try and talk to anyone religious in their family if they felt they had wanted that, but there wasn't necessarily where you would go up, you'd feel, and any, I'm not saying not everyone, I'm saying obviously there are people, but I would say at least my friendship group, my cousins, I know that they wouldn't have the courage to go to the Gurdwara, talk to the Granthi and say this is what it's about. So it's just about being that little gap in between and letting the generation know, like, no, this is us, we're not all perfect, we're all practicing, we're all still learning. Basically, we're all definitely still learning. And I hope that anyone who feels like they can't go to the Gurdwara, or that they're not religious enough, or they don't look like what they should be looking like to go to the Gurdwara, they don't feel Sikh enough, that they definitely can, because we're all on our journeys. Sometimes I feel like that as well, but it doesn't mean that you should not take those steps towards Sikhi.
From someone who actually can't speak Punjabi very well, it is hard. There is a language barrier when you go to the Gurdwara or when you talk to elders in the family, like, and you want to know more about Sikhi, there is that barrier. So I feel like, but now I've started doing, Bart and stuff. So it's like there is a bridge, but don't make it a bridge. Don't make it an excuse not to look into your religion or look into Sikhi. Do you know what I mean? So
that's good, because a lot of our posts are in English, or they have English translations. Even when I've written Barney in one of the comments on Instagram, on an Instagram post, I've always translated it. And I got a lot of people messaging me asking me to write my captions in Punjabi. And the reason why I've never done that is because I know that a lot of my audience only read and write English. And so the second I put it in Punjabi fully, it kind of pushes Sikhi back into that, like people that can only speak and read in Punjabi fluently. But the reason behind Sikhi Class is to educate a wider audience, right? It's not just for people that can speak and write in Punjabi. Now, technology is incredible. You can translate those captions to Punjabi if your phone is in the Punjabi language and if you've got Punjabi keyboard. And that is something that Gurdwara Sahibs actually can work on in terms of educating younger Sangat who don't know Punjabi. Of course, teach Punjabi, and I think everyone should try and learn Punjabi at some stage. But for the people that are in the process of doing so, or haven't quite got to that point yet, there needs to be a communication of Sikhi in English so that everyone can understand it.
Yeah. I agree with him. Like when I started doing Bart from the translation Gurkha, it wasn't because I couldn't read Punjabi, it's because it was at such a basic level, like Ura, Oud, Era, like it was so basic that obviously I couldn't read Gurbani. And I didn't want to do it wrong. I think it's that fear factor of you don't want to disrespect your religion. It's something you identify with. You want to put it in the utmost respect. You care for it so much that you don't want to pronounce it wrong. But when you see even the English translations, because Punjabi is so pure, Gurmukhi is so pure, we don't have those letters in English. It's very hard to get those translations right. So I think, yes, it is very important that right now we make sure that there's this language that everyone can understand. They can get to know Sikhi if they want, whether they're from a Punjabi household or not, a Sikhi household or not. If they come across this on Instagram, it could be something they read because they understand English. But also it's very important to, perhaps if you are into your Sikhi and you do want to learn Gurbani, it would be very helpful if you do take that step towards Punjabi as well, because then that's just the pronunciation becomes easy and you know you're definitely pronouncing it how it should be pronounced.
Mm-hmm. And pronunciation is very important as well, Barney. So obviously learning Punjabi would be very helpful with that. So I mean, yeah, obviously encourage younger Sangat to learn Punjabi, but also don't push them away from Sikhi because they don't know Punjabi. Yeah. That's kind of like the basis of what Sikhi Class is, really. Is that, and like I said before, opening a safe space for discussion, like through our podcasts, because I feel like a lot of people feel scared, like you said, or not religious enough to have these open discussions. And so Sikhi Class, we kind of want to make it a space for people to have these discussions and not feel like they're going to be judged for where they're at with Sikhi, which is why at the start of every podcast I ask my guests, where they're at with Sikhi, because I feel like people can relate to different people's stories and different people's journeys with Sikhi, and you don't have to be at a certain point in Sikhi to be considered a Sikh. So
you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, so everything in this podcast is just about getting to know us and where our heads are at with the Sikhi journey. Of course, we're still learning, and this is all our opinion that we have formed from different Bajad videos and reading Barneys, doing our own research, but it's definitely not the law. It's definitely not that we claim to know everything about Sikhi. It's just our opinions on what we're currently seeing and how we would like to help the generation, the youth, and anyone who's trying to get into Sikhi. So this is just a quick question for you guys. What do you perceive the fundamentals of Sikhi to be? Again, this is just your own opinion and what you see. It doesn't necessarily mean it's correct, but what do you think?
I think there's loads of fundamentals to Sikhi. You can't really pinpoint them. But I'd say doing your daily part is really important in being a good practicing Sikh.
So when I was younger, it was just, if you do part, if you don't eat meat, don't drink alcohol, don't cut your hair, you are a very good Sikh and you're going to get into heaven, and it's great. But obviously, as I grew up, I felt like doing my own research, it wasn't the case. And I believe that to be, Beherava is a very important part of Sikhi. When you look the part, people around you feel safe, because I feel safe around Sikhs, that's true. But it also will stop you from doing bad things, because you know you're looking a certain way, you're representing a certain group, you wouldn't do that. But I feel like now, for me, the fundamentals of Sikhi is when you look into Guru Nanak Dev Ji, when they came in the Kali Yuga, it was basically this light that was saying, no, there's no point of fighting over religions, because every route to God is correct. And as a job, my job as a Sikh, I do feel like it's about making sure every religion is allowed to practice and they're not being oppressed. I'm not saying that I'm actually physically there defending people. I wish I could, but I do my best in the way I talk, in the way I try to educate people, that how could we assume that there is only one correct route to God? How is that even possible when there's all these religions in the world? I personally do believe that every route to God is the correct route to God, and Sikhi allows freedom and allows freedom of those religions to practice them without being oppressed. So I felt like that was the key ethos of Sikhi when you look into it. And when the Khalsa Panth was formed, again, against oppression. So then I changed my ways from thinking, oh, you know, if you go to the Gurdwara, you don't cut your hair, you're a good Sikh, to, yes, do the Pehrava, that's very important as well. But it has to come with you understanding what is the basics of your religion completely. And is that the basics of Sikhi? It's the basics of Sikhi for me, but I know it might be different for everyone else. Simran, what are your opinions on that?
Okay, so if you're looking at the basics of being a good Sikh, anyone would say just being a good human is like the basic start of it. You know, that's a fundamental, you know, to just be able to have they are meaning compassion towards anyone, and just being a good human is a very basic. But if we're looking at Guru Nanak Dev Ji's teachings of Nam Japo, which is, you know, being able to recite Nam, recite Bhat, recite Bani, and then you've got Kirat Karo, so earning by honest means, and then Vanshako, so being able to share that with everyone. Those could be seen as the three fundamentals of Sikhi as well. So again, the fundamentals of Sikhi is different to everyone. That's my kind of fundamentals of Sikhi. That would be where I would say, okay, at that point, if you were doing those things, you were going down the line of Sikhi, because you're doing everything that is correct in the eyes of Guru Sahib. But then it brings up the argument of, okay, if you're not doing one of those, are you not Sikh?
Makes you a bad person or not a good practicing Sikh. Right? Yeah, I agree.
That's a good point, guys. So do you think that's why that a lot of people in this generation would think, oh, I don't keep my hair, or I drink alcohol, go to the club, eat meat, so therefore I can't take these steps towards Sikhi? Do you think that's what maybe the generation's thinking these days?
Definitely. I feel like the generation today, we're so involved in like the norm, or, you know, party, doing whatever, but it's not like that for a lot of people.
Leading on from what you just said about one's fundamentals of Sikhi is very different. That is probably where the root problem is, where people are looking at, say, so the fundamentals to one person is to keep your Panch Kagar, and the fundamentals to someone else is what I just said about Guru Nanak Dev Ji's teachings. So if one person is saying, you're not following Sikhi because you're not following the fundamentals of Sikhi that I believe in, that's where there's an issue, and that's why people are shying away from Sikhi, because they're being told at that point that they are not following Sikhi the right way. But then that brings the question of, is there a right way to follow Sikhi?
The way Sikhi helps you as an individual is all always going to be different, right? Your journey is
Yeah.
always going to be different from the individual to Waheguru. It's always going to be different. So there's no point of comparing your fundaments to anyone else either, because why would there be many different Jadics, right? There'd only be one, because that everyone would have the same. There wouldn't be needs for like loads and loads and loads. But Bart does stuff for you as an individual. Sikhi does stuff for you as an individual. So you're going to reflect it in an individualistic way. So there's no point of focusing on someone else's fundamentals and someone else telling you you're not a good Sikh, because what is a good Sikh?
It becomes an issue when we're knocking people off of their Sikhi, because we need to realise that people have different fundamentals of Sikhi or different ways of approaching Sikhi. But the second we tell someone that they're doing it wrong because they're not wearing the Banchka guard, or because they're drinking and then doing Nam Simran, and then all of these things, this is where we're knocking people away from Sikhi, pushing the youth away from Sikhi, and telling people that Sikhi needs to be followed in one way, but the journey of Sikhi for everyone is going to be different. The destination's the same, and I've said this so many times in so many podcasts, because it's the one thing that has resonated with me the most, because my Sikhi journey has been, I would want to say like a straight road, but it hasn't, right? And I don't think anyone's would ever be a straight road. You know, you've always got something that you have to tackle next to get to that next stage of your Sikhi. But if you're not having the right support at that point of where you're trying to get over that barrier, you're going to get knocked back. So someone saying to you that you're not following Sikhi right because you don't wear your Banchka guard, it might be the case for them, but that's gonna push people away. That's when there's an issue. So the issue isn't people having different fundamentals of Sikhi, it's how you're putting those fundamentals on other people.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, following on from Simran's point, a lot of people say, oh, I'm not that religious, but what is being religious? Do you have the correct perception? For me, I think Sikhi is not even about being religious. It's more about having a duty of carrying Sikhi, and it's not like, oh, you know, on Sunday I'll go to the Gurdwara and practice Sikhi, but it's like, no, every day it's my duty to practice Sikhi and to do my part and to, you know, help others, do my seva. And I think that's where a lot of people do get it confused as well. Like, it's not just something that you can do here and there. It's not about, oh, I'm a really good person anyway, like I'm not a bad person, so it's fine. It's about carrying the duty out and just going that extra mile.
I think Sikhi is just that thing where you do get into it. I can't lie, with any religion, you will just get into it because it's just doing so much for you and your soul. You will be more inclined to go towards it. You might not think in a million years that's ever going to be me, but why won't it be you? You know, this is kind of,
don't write it off. Yeah, I think once you start doing part, you do naturally, that connection with the one or with the true guru does form. So
no, it does. Of course it does. I think this is the thing though, right? Because there's so much pressure on people to find Sikhi at a certain point in their life. But what we need to realise is that everyone's journey into Sikhi is different. The way that we've found Sikhi now, us three, in a year, it will be completely different. Like, we will be at different points of our Sikhi. Whether that is considered to some as us being more religious or not, is irrelevant, because that's our own personal journeys into Sikhi. And the youth feel disconnected from Sikhi because there is this expectation of what is religious and what isn't religious, what's considered to be a good Sikh, what is considered to be a not good Sikh. I think that's where there's a lot of judgment, and that's where there's a lot of kids struggling to find their Sikhi, because people are pressurizing others to find it in a certain way. We've been on the platform for a while now, so we've seen it with our own eyes, where Gauls get hate for the way that they practice Sikhi, and then Gauls get hate for the ways that they don't practice Sikhi. And this is just going to drive the youth away from Sikhi. So obviously that's where Sikhi Class comes in, where we want to have open discussion. We want to talk about these things, because we don't want people of the future, kids of the future, to have to see Sikhi in a certain way, because it shouldn't be black and white.
Yeah. Same, especially when the Gurdwara is literally open to every single person. It doesn't matter what religion you follow. It doesn't matter who you are. or the color of your skin, it doesn't matter at all, right? The Gurdwara is open to literally everyone. It's we give langar, you do seva, you know, you can matha take, it doesn't matter who you are. And when it's just so inclusive, it is so sad that people feel like, especially our generation, people even our age, I know Sikh people from uni or just cousins or whoever our age, I feel like they will know in their head there's a perception of Sikhi, but I drink alcohol, I eat meat, I go to the clubs, I'm not a religious person, I'm not a good Sikh. And I think that if they're putting that in between themselves because they've probably heard from parents, aunties, uncles, or whatever that, oh, you know, this is a good Sikh, this is a bad Sikh, you're not being it. And they kind of just distance themselves because they don't want to disrespect the religion. I know people have respect for Sikhi and they don't want to be disrespectful towards it. But how is that stopping you from, I'm not saying, oh yeah, do all those things and go to the Gurdwara, like definitely not what I'm advising at all. But I'm saying, don't limit yourself and don't think because you're a certain way that you can't have that relationship with God. Who said you can't have a relationship with Waheguru? You know, that's up to you to make those decisions. It's up to you to follow what you want to follow. Please carry on giving it the respect that everyone does. I know people hold Sikhi with highest respect, so do I. So yeah, don't try and disrespect it. But having said that, don't distance yourself. Don't think that this is micromanaged to the extent that I will never be a part of Sikhi. I don't follow the Panchka God. I think that's it's just going to stop you. It's going to make an excuse for you and you won't ever get involved. And Sikhi could be the thing that really helps you with your work, helps you live a good house to life, but in peace. So please don't limit yourself basically to anyone our generation. Don't think that you've done things and you're unforgivable, you're written off now, that's it, there's no improvement for you.
Yeah, just find out Sikhi for yourself, read Barney yourself, you know. Don't let the older gen or anyone else say, oh, this is what Sikhi is and this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do, this is what it says, because until you see it for yourself, you won't actually know. Yeah. And even we've had a lot of conversations like, just read Gurbani yourself.
I can tell you, I can say it in the podcast. How many times have we had conversation in the group chat where I've been like, girls, go and find out for yourself? Yeah. Because I know that me telling you lot something about Sikhi, it might be that you take it a different way. So I always encourage you two to just go and have a look at what we're talking about, as well as hearing me say it. And that goes for like any video that you watch as well. The amount of basics of Sikhi videos that I've watched and allowed it to build probably 10% of my opinion. The other 90% of my opinion is based on what I find myself. And if everyone was to have that mindset going into whatever, I'm not even just talking about Sikhi at this point, any point of your life where you feel like you need to form an opinion on it, I encourage that 90% of your opinion is formed from whatever experience that you've had on the situation, as opposed to just listening to what everyone else says. What Sim was saying before about people feeling like because they go clubbing, because they drink, they can't follow Sikhi. I encourage you to go away and find out why you can't drink and why Sikhi doesn't encourage clubbing, why you shouldn't, and then form your own opinion on it. Because that is the only way that if you just listen to everyone saying to you, you can't drink, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're just going to be so confused at that point, because you're going to just at that time it's just going to be words, but you won't really know and understand why you can't drink until you go and read Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj's hukams about where Guru Sahib says we shouldn't drink or we shouldn't consume drugs. That is the only point at which you're really going to understand why, and then form your opinion on it, right? And then decide whether it's a good route for you or not. Because I feel like a lot of people get scared of Sikhi because they're just told that they can't do certain things, but there's no reason why.
And I think when people are finding out those answers, they will feel more content in themselves to maybe steer away from those things, or maybe do it less, or however long it takes, or whatever their journey is. I feel like Sikhi is so lovely because it does make you feel content. It makes you feel like, you know, it's me and Waheguru, and that's all that I need, and that's the true beauty of it.
I agree with what you guys have just said, with go away and find out for yourself if it's something you feel like you should be doing, but listen to the teachings behind it. It's not just yes or no. You know, Sikhi isn't black or white. It's a spectrum. Any religion's a spectrum. You shouldn't be thinking this is a certain level I'm at, time to step up and stop doing all the evil, bad things. But why do you think they're evil? Who told you that they're bad? Maybe go into it, do your research, see if it's something you want to be doing after seeing the reasoning behind it, and definitely don't class yourself as a bad person. With what we said previously about forming opinions, don't listen to discerning elder generation that like, don't do this, don't do that. but be careful, because it shouldn't just be cut off what the elders say. The elder have the knowledge, right? They know everything, but perhaps the way they're coming across might be a little bit more orthodox in their way of practicing Sikhi. Not all of them. Some people scare because they care, right? So let's shut them off completely, but form your own opinions, because in anything in life, you can't be told to think a certain way. You need to do it for yourself. And with something as big as religion, it shouldn't be because you've heard from so-and-so, you know, from your uncle, your granddad, whatever, that this is wrong, this is right, you're not following Sikhi.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. I think the elders know best. Like, that's what we've been grown up to know. And of course they do. Like, they've seen a lot more life than us. They do, and they've seen a lot more than us. They have a lot more knowledge than us. Sometimes the way that the elders put it is daunting to the youngsters and to the youth, because we know what elders can be like. They can be very blunt with what they say, and
be very stubborn
because they know, but they know what they're talking about. It's just the way that we consume knowledge as youngsters is very different to how they've consumed knowledge. So the way that they put it to us is in a way that they understand, but being younger, being born in a completely new generation, we're going to take that information a lot different to how they put it to us, if that makes sense. So that's why I said before about the 10% thing. Understand, like, letting people's opinions and what people tell you form 10% of your opinion on something, and then the other 90% you go out and find it yourself. That's how we need to be approaching Sikhi, because if we're not, and we're just allowing it to be black and white with do's and don'ts, we're going to be pushed away from it. And I think a lot of that learning came from my mum, who would teach me a lot of Sikhi, but then also tell me to go and read Barney myself, and go and understand it for myself. Because you can have a Sikh journey, being raised in a Sikh household, and you can call yourself a Sikh, but honestly, until you start your own self-led journey into Sikhi, you will not understand why we do what we do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that either of my grandparents, because neither of my grandparents were baptized Sikhs. I wasn't getting all of my Sikhi knowledge from them, but they would teach me, because they're Punjabi born. They would teach me Path, they'd teach me simple things like Mool Mantar. So for me, they weren't the condescending ones, but I guess it would be other people in family who have so much respect for, you don't want to mess it up in front of them. And they're like, nope, don't do this, do that. And they're saying it out of a place of love. They're saying it because that's the way they care and respect for Sikhi. And you just have to understand that it could also be a cultural difference. With my mum is always saying to me that this generation is very soft, being born and bred in England. And she always says, no, Punjabi say it the way they should be saying it. They just say it without floweriness, right? And I agree to a certain extent. So that could also be that. Like, no one's being mean. No one would ever try and put you off Sikhi. So I don't think they're trying to put you off. They could just be saying it the way they're used to hearing it. So it could also just be that.
Yeah, in my household, I was born in a Sikh household, but there wasn't much Sikh influence, like, from either of my parents. So it was kind of just like, yeah, you're in a Sikh household, you do the normal stuff, you celebrate all the special days and stuff. But I think when you get older, you just question, well, what is my history? What am I meant to be kind of doing? What makes me a good Sikh? And then you get into it. So yeah, listen to your elders. They have really good wisdom.
They do.
But not everything they say. I'd say take stuff that they say with a pinch of salt, because yeah, as we keep saying, you do need to find out for yourself. And if you're surrounded by good sangat, then you will naturally want to get into it. And I think that's why, like, being a part of Sikhi class or even following it is still having good sangat around you, and you'd want to get into it and you'd want to learn more about it.
What if I told you guys, though, it wasn't necessarily the elders that are disconcerting, it's perhaps people that are a similar age to you in this generation, the Sikhs, the ones that are very active at the Gurdwara, and if you felt like you could just never be a part of that loop, and you think it's so amazing that they are, but you just see that you look different to them, you're not as Sikh as them, you don't wear the mala, you don't have the Panchka card, you're not Amritchak like they might be Amritchak, and they're literally of your age, so you feel like, oh my god, I'm never going to be involved, and you can go Vajja, Tabla, you can go Punjabi class, but you feel kind of like you're not going to be a part of that loop. And I know other people, who, other Sikhs that I know in our community for our local Gurdwara, I know some Sikhs do feel that way, like, oh, you know, they've got their own elite group, but they might be the most lovely, welcoming people, but you just don't bother to go up to them and talk to them because they're some of the nicest people. So what are your
With me,
opinions?
like I don't even talk Punjabi like well, so it's hard for me. So I'm like, well, how can I even, you know, progress so far into my Sikhi journey? But I'm gonna make the effort to learn to read, write, and speak Punjabi properly. And so it's just about it coming from within. So a lot of your point relates to the normal social pressures within people of similar age to us. For example, if you're a Sikh and you drink alcohol, you're going to feel guilty standing next to a Sikh who's been blessed with Amrit. So the question is, how do you think we can stop people feeling this guilt or resentment to themselves?
Yeah, Bab, or I'd say even pressure. Rather, they see someone and they might not feel any of these three things. They might just think, right, I'm not that, I'm not religious, I'm not the religious one, you know, I'm not that type of Sikh. So how can we build that gap? How can we let people know, like, no, your path with Waheguru, your path with any religion you follow, not just Sikhi now, it's a spectrum, right?
That's what people, I think, have a difficulty understanding.
The problem here starts with people allowing external voices to influence their decisions or their opinions on certain things. And I say that because a lot of the time we allow people who we are not close to, people that we won't accept advice from or compliments from, to criticize our way of thinking or our way of living, and we take their criticism on board as opposed to their opinions or that provide us with some sort of benefit. So there's a lot of external voices that are affecting our youth at the moment because, as we said before, a lot of people are saying what you should do and what you shouldn't do, as opposed to giving reasons why or educating. And sometimes that comes across really harsh. A very good place to start would be, instead of being that harsh on the younger generation, older generation, whoever we're trying to educate, there needs to be justification as to why we do things the way that we do them. So if you were telling someone that they shouldn't drink, and they shouldn't drink, in Sikhi, you know that you shouldn't drink, there needs to be a reason why. The second you just tell someone that they shouldn't do something, it's like telling a kid not to press a red button. They're going to press that red button.
They're going to go press the red button.
Of course, because they're being told not to do something. And as humans,
if you said to the kid, don't press the red button because a monster will come out and
they won't press
bite
it.
your finger off. Yeah, they won't press it. It is exactly true. You're saying you need to give a reason.
And the human brain is very similar to a child brain. I mean the fully developed brain, because
it's just more developed, isn't it?
We still consume information the same way. So if you were telling someone who is younger they shouldn't drink, they're going to take it the same way. Unless you give them a reason why and you educate them on why, it's not going to hit them. Even then, they might decide to still continue to drink, but at that point, they have formed their own opinion on it, as opposed to just taking criticism from someone that they wouldn't take good advice from. So the first thing would be to check who you allow to become your sangat and to give you these opinions.
Let me just say, what if there was a situation, I know we're saying, oh, there's red button, I know you've told them don't do it, they're going to not do it, but you know, everyone has such different backgrounds that they come from, different environments they come from. Maybe, what if the sangat is their mum and dad? What if their mum and dad are alcoholics? What if their cousins, their older brothers are alcoholics, their older sisters, right? So how can we then say we understand people can be in different situations. They could be in depression, they could be grieving, it could be bereavement, and that's the reason they've turned to intoxicants. That could be the reason why they want to just fit in now when they go to uni. They want to drink with everyone else, they want to fit in maybe with their work friends, have a drink after work. So how could we then help those kind of people? Because this is not even now at the young generation, I'm saying older generations. How many times have we said in our community, oh, he's a sharabi, he's an alcoholic, right? He's a 40-year-old man, he's an alcoholic, he doesn't know any better. So how are we allowing people like that to understand, no, you're no different to me as a Sikh. It doesn't mean that just because I don't drink that I'm not on my own journey, that I think I'm perfect, because I really don't. I think I'm far from. But how can we let those people understand that everyone's on the same level as learning? No one's learned, right? It doesn't matter, the day you die, you're always going to be learning. You're a Sikh, you're always constantly learning. So how can we get those people to see that we are just like them, we're no different? I know us three, it doesn't matter what other people claim to be, us three don't claim to be any different from someone who's learning. So how could we get them?
I think it's just opening up the conversation to them. Like you said, giving them a reason not to press the red button. They're consuming that information. It's now inside them, so they can think about it when they want, they can form their opinion on it. So if you open up conversation with those people, then I think that's probably the first step, getting in there, in helping them to realize that, you know, it is okay. If you want to do these things, or if you're going through this at the moment, that's why you're doing it, it is okay. But just know that, you know, there is another way around this as well.
Yeah, discussion, healthy discussion.
Healthy discussion.
When I say healthy, I mean not shutting people down for the things that they do, because I feel like we are very inclined to know what's right and wrong, and
Yeah.
the second someone's doing something wrong, we're not approaching that situation carefully enough, in the
Yeah.
sense of we're not I think anyone can be blamed for this. I think we've all done it once before, where we know that a certain thing is wrong, but instead of educating that person and telling them why, we've just gone, nah, you're wrong. But if you actually step back and go and take in everything that they said and educate them about it, that will be received very different by that person, and that person will consume the information differently. We can all say we've done it, right? We're all humans. Humans will make the same mistake where
We all
we
have opinions
haven't.
at the end of the day, but
Exactly.
it's about controlling it, and also not letting that affect how you perceive someone as well, and what they're going through. Just
Definitely.
when talking to people, and try and put yourself in their shoes when they're
Exactly.
explaining what they're going through.
You can't judge someone else's Sikhi, because the second you've done that, you're not on the right path. I'm sorry to say it, you're not on the right path yourself. That journey is your personal journey, and if you feel like you are so entitled to judge someone else's journey, you are going down it the wrong way. If people realize that they need to look at their own Sikhi before looking at other people's Sikhi, it will make it very easy for other people to practice Sikhi and not feel like they are being restricted.
No, Sim, I agree so much, because again, when it came to the fundamentals question, like, what do you personally believe? I personally believe the point of a true Sikh and a good just disciple of Waheguru, any disciple of God, it doesn't matter what religion you're following, is just being selfless service, right? And stopping the Sikh specifically, stopping the oppression of people celebrating, practicing religion how they wish and want to. Of course, I don't think there's any main religions that say be intoxicated and pray, but it doesn't mean that we can then shut that person down and say, you've come from a horrible background, now you're resorting to these things, and this means that you will never ever be Sikh, you're never going to find a religion. No, we should be helping those people, aiding those people. It's not easy to go through trauma in life, and I'm sure we've all been through certain parts of life which we wish we could forget or delete, but you can't. And it's how Sikhi has helped me through that I would love to share that with other people. I would love to tell people there's a light and you're not alone, but not even because I'm here, because you are a soul bride to Waheguru, right? You're never going to be alone. So that's kind of the point I was getting at when I was asking, how can we get those people on board? Because they might not even be of our age group. It might not just be young kid thinking they're different to the elders. It might be a middle-aged man or a middle-aged woman thinking that, I've made choices in life, I don't identify as Sikh, I might go there for New Year's, go to Gurdwara for New Year's, and I don't do anything else Sikhi, I'm not Sikh. But why? When did you start telling yourself that you couldn't be a Sikh, or you couldn't practice? Is it because you do these things? Well, then who's to say that you can't just educate yourself further and see what you really think about the religion, and see if you really think you're religious or not. You could still drink alcohol and do selfless service in a way that's not at the Gurdwara. You could just be helping a normal civilian, right? So then why would you tell yourself you're not religious when you know fundamentally you want to be a good person, and that these acts that you're doing can stop eventually along the way, as long as you do your research, you start having reasons for why you don't want to do certain things. Then who's to say you can't be one of the most practicing Sikhs one day, or any religion that you're a part of?
We all have our own sin, and that is so important for everyone to realize. The second you acknowledge that you are sinning is the point at which you can move over it. For example, if you are someone that drinks, the first step of being able to overcome that barrier is go, I drink, right? And then, okay, now that you know that you drink and you've acknowledged that you drink, how you get over that would be reading into why we don't drink in Sikhi. But you can't take that step unless you actually acknowledge that you drink. And then it's the guilt that comes with it. The guilt is the problem, because people feel like they're not worthy of Sikhi because they drink. But you need to realize that Sikhi is more than just it is the destination, but it's more than that. It's a lifestyle. It's a full-on lifestyle. The second you practice Sikhi, you are practicing a lifestyle that once adopting will change your life for the better, but it's taking that step. And a lot of people don't take that step because they realize that they're sinning, but they don't acknowledge that they're sinning. And everyone has their own sin. So the second you realize, hold on, everyone else has their own sin as well, but this is mine, and I'm going to overcome it, and I'm not going to judge anyone else for their sin. It just makes that path of Sikhi and that lifestyle of Sikhi so much easier to attain.
So Sim, having said that, what would you say for someone who does deem themselves to be sick, drinks alcohol? Let's just say our age. Let me give a rough example. Let's just say that someone our age, they drink alcohol, they go to the club, they don't care, but they know they're a good person fundamentally. They love going to the Gurdwara and they have their own relationship with God. What can we say for that? And we've just been saying it's a sin, it's a sin. What if they don't deem it as a sin? They say, you know what, it's no big deal. What can we say for that?
My opinion would be the same. Why is it not a sin to you? Like, have that open discussion with yourself first. Like, why are you not okay? Why do you think that's not a sin? Read Barney, read what Guru Sahib has said, read about why it's bad for you. The fundamentals of Sikhi are different to everyone, and yes, yours might not include the fact that the whole drinking and alcohol situation scenario. But yeah, there is a point where if you want to come over drinking and get over it and stop doing it, again, acknowledging the fact that you do drink, realizing why it's a bad thing, that's the only way you're going to kind of get over it. Because if you're not seeing it as a sin yourself, you're not ever going to stop drinking, right? If you're not learning about why it's bad, you're not going to stop doing it. And if you've then formed your opinion thinking that, yeah, do you know what, it's actually a good thing, that is between you and Guru Sahib. That is not for anyone else to comment on. And the second that people are commenting on other people's Sikhi, we are pushing them away from Sikhi, because that person might at that time think, yeah, do you know what, it's not that big of a deal, and later on realize that it's a bad thing and they should stop. But if people outside are saying that's a bad thing, you need to stop, and you're putting that pressure on someone, as humans we can only take so much before we back away from something completely.
Yeah, because you feel like, well, they don't get me, I'm not in a different path, okay, forget this, then maybe I'm not a Sikh, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what would you say now in a different situation? Alcohol is more of a social thing, or it could be depression or whatever, but when it comes to hair removal for the young Gars and Singhs, how would you say, when we know it's a sin and we shouldn't have to conform to societal norms, we should be proud and we understand what God has given us, even through evolution, right? Scientifically now, every hair we have on our body is an evolutionary benefit. We know that we should have it, and we remove it because of societal pressure. So how could we then say, right, you're not, like, how do we make those people feel like they're not sinning? Because I know I struggle with this as well. Removing hair is an issue for a lot of people around me. I know it is. So how could we then feel like less puppy, less sinful for doing this? Because right now we just want to fit in.
Okay, so my first thing would be to say it is a sin. We shouldn't be removing our hair. I do it as well. We shouldn't be doing it. Now the fact that we've acknowledged that it is a sin and it's something that we shouldn't do, how you get over it is going to be different from Jeff up the road to Fred down the road. So again, it's that idea of not putting pressure on yourself to stop removing your hair. It's that journey in itself is a personal journey that you are gonna, and it's the same with alcohol, it's the same with drugs, whatever it is that you are doing that is a sin, that is a personal journey that you are gonna approach very differently to your neighbor. With me, and talking from my experience, because that's all I can kind of go off of, I was conforming to societal norms, doing my eyebrows, removing my hair, because that's what we know, right? That's all we know. And it got to a point where I realized, hold on, this is really bad. And I was still doing it at that point. Knowing that it was a sin, I was still doing it because I was trying to find that comfort and that point at which I could go, do you know what, I'm going to stop now. That journey in itself it's not easy. It's not an easy journey. But when you start looking into Sikhi and the reasons why, and you start having answers to why, it becomes somewhat easier for you to understand. For example, giving up meat, eating meat. I used to eat meat. Now I can't look at meat the same way because I know why we don't eat meat. And so it's easier for me to give up meat, right? So it's that, and it's also making Ardaas that Guru Sahib gives you the strength to follow his Sikhi. The second you've said to Guru Sahib, do you know what, this is where I'm going wrong, please keep me under your charan and help me find that path to you where I can stop doing this. Guru Sahib has acknowledged that, okay, this is what you're struggling with. And just as a child will go to a parent when they're struggling with something, you've now gone to your parent, you've gone to Guru Sahib and you said, this is what I'm struggling with. Guru Sahib will eventually show you the way forward. But that journey takes as long as it needs to. And the second you start thinking that you can't do it, and that's because either you're telling yourself you can't do it or you're listening to someone else, you are knocking yourself back 10 steps. So it's just that trying to be consistent with it, trying to fully allow yourself to understand why, and also going to Guru Sahib and knowing that you are doing something wrong and allowing Guru Sahib to bring you back towards them. You will not wake up one day and go, okay, tomorrow I'm going to stop cutting my hair. It doesn't happen like that. It doesn't. We
Right.
wish it would, but it doesn't. It's a progressive thing. And it's like that with anything.
I agree, because I think the thing is, right, I don't do any intoxicants because I think I don't want anything stopping me from ever doing my bar to my barneys. It means so much to me and it gives me so much peace that there's no benefit for me. So what would you say for someone who doesn't drink alcohol because they say, you right, into is my barney, or maybe it just doesn't stomach well for me, it's not palatable, or I don't see the appeal, right? But they still remove their hair, whether they're a god or a sing, because they think I want to fit into society. So, but they don't feel bad about it, but they're doing their barneys. They really want to practice their barneys. Are they not allowed to do that if they're still removing hair but not intoxicated? What's your take on that, Sim?
No one can tell you what you are and what you're not allowed to do in Sikhi. That's the first thing. And that, if you feel like within your mind or within your rule, you can't approach reading Barney because you've gone and had a drink, or you've gone and cut your hair, and then you've come back and you're like, oh, I want to do Barney. Again, that is such a personal struggle, and that is something that the only advice I could give to someone at that point is make Ardaas about it, because Guru Sahib will bring that light in front of you and let you know what you should be doing at that point. My other thing is, if you are allowing your sin to restrict you from practicing Sikhi, you will not ever approach Sikhi in a good way, and you will not be able to take that leap, because remember, we were born in the perfect form, but during our life, with living in Kali, we are hit with so many distractions, and these distractions are different forms of sin, right? So if we imagine, if it's like me saying to you guys now, I drink, so because Sikhi doesn't say that we can drink, I'm never going to go to a Gurdwara. It just sounds so silly, right? Because you've put yourself in that bracket where you can't practice Sikhi. But you will never ever be able to practice Sikhi until you've taken that step. So how are you going to take that step if you're stopping yourself because you're sinning? Because this life is full of sin. There's always going to be something bad. So it's how you overcome, like I said, it's how you overcome it. It's acknowledging that I do this bad thing, but how can I overcome it so I'm still in line with my Sikhi?
Yeah.
And I'm still following my Sikhi so that one day I can stop. But you're never going to be able to stop if you haven't taken that jump.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I feel like that is such a key, because I know all three of us, right, have been through our own things where we feel like at some point, like, oh no, I'm being a bad Sikh today. I've done this, I've done that. Can I do part or whatever, right? And I think the point here is just about trying to be relatable. So if you are listening to this, regardless of your age or gender or anything, it's just that if you think that you can't go to Sikhi because of X, Y, Z you're doing, you really can. Because if, as literally Simran hit the nail on the head, is if you don't take the first step, you're never going to take it, and it's going to that spectrum. You're going to be probably right at the very beginning because you're too scared to take that step because you don't want to disrespect it. Obviously, don't be disrespectful, but don't think that you can't take certain steps, because who are we or who's anyone else to tell you the do's and don'ts, right? Do your own research, learn from the gurus yourself to understand what you can or can't do, and learn the reasoning behind what you should or shouldn't do rather than do or don't.
It's so lovely because even if you are doing a sin or you are drinking alcohol or whatever, you know, when you do want to stop, when you do acknowledge that, then Guru Sahib will like welcome you back with open arms, will kind of like always accept you for making the right decision, or do you know what I mean?
We always have to remember, like exactly what you were saying, Bhav, that Guru Sahib is the greatest forgiver. So even if we have done something wrong, Guru Sahib is not going to judge you for it, ever. The thing about judgment is we take judgment from other people thinking that Guru Sahib thinks the same, but it's not true.
Yeah.
It's not true. There's no way that Guru Sahib is going to turn around and turn his back on you because you've had a drink, because you've cut your hair, because you've done whatever it is, whatever form of sin it was. There's no way Guru Sahib is not going to welcome you back with open arms or stop you from going to the Gurdwara. because you've done that one bad thing. And the reason why I'm like kind of laughing when I say it is because when we say it out loud like that, it sounds so silly, but I know how much we can all get stuck in our heads and think that this is the way forward. But this is why having conversation like this is so good, because I'm hoping that someone on the other end is going to listen to this and go, do you know what, it's actually so silly that I thought that way. I want to ask you guys as well, is there a point at which you have felt like you have been disconnected from Sikhi?
Yeah, so
What do you think?
yeah, so I would say I feel like for me, when I felt like I was the most disconnected from Sikhi, actually had a direct correlation with when I was doing Bart or not. So I stayed around like year 9, 10, maybe the beginning of year 11. I was a bit like waking up late, being a typical teen. I wasn't doing my Bart properly. And it wasn't that I wasn't doing Bart and it felt like a good Sikh, but because I wasn't doing Bart, it just stopped me from doing certain little things that would really benefit me to get onto that path of Sikhi I wasn't doing anymore. So I think that was it for me. What about you, Bhav?
For me, I think it's the main one is just not being able to talk Punjabi. Like that's quite a big barrier. And I feel like for a lot of people, it could also make them feel disconnected with Sikhi as well, because that's a language that our gurus spoke in and what they've taught us everything in. So how I overcame that was just listening to Bart and Barney all the time, having it on repeat. Constantly listening to it, whether I'm before bed or just waking up or even during the day, just constantly having it on. And you catch on to Bart, and then I feel like now for me it's actually learning how to read and write it. That will be next for me. But you see, everyone does it in their own way. Some people might want to read and write it first and then do Bart, but for me it was like, no, I wanted to do Bart at that time. I wanted to start reciting Japji Sahib, Kirtan Surala, everything. So I did that first, and now I want to read and write.
Yeah. So what would you say was that push for you? Why did you randomly feel like, no, you wanted to do Bart? Was that what you felt like would the first step towards Sikhi be?
I think that it was just, I think during the first lockdown, like the first one in 2020 March, I kind of just felt like, why am I even following Sikhi? So really just reading the English translation as well to Barney, it made me connect, and it made me want to read it more and more.
Yeah.
And it's touching when you read it in English or whatever language, Punjabi, and you actually understand it. It's nice.
Yeah. Over lockdown, I feel like similar to you, Bab, a lot of people were just faced in a room with all their thoughts, right? Maybe anything they've ever done. So much overthinking. Anyone I've spoken to is overthink. And even personally, I feel like that's when I had the most time in my entire life to just watch Nanak Nam videos, watch basics of Sikhi. I'm not saying I did the most. I'm saying I just did more than I usually had ever done before. So I think, like you saying that
during lockdown, I think everyone did have that extra time. And it just made me wonder, well, what is Sikhi all about? Why am I saying I follow this religion? When do I know really that much about it? And obviously I did, but now I just have a great understanding. I'm want to just learn more now as well. So it's all about bettering yourself, I think.
I feel like that was really healthy conversation. A lot of the things that we addressed there goes off of our personal experiences, but also what we kind of want to achieve with the platform that we have now. And going forward, we hope that Sikhi Class just becomes that comfortable space for people to have these conversations and very open conversations, especially the new generation that is coming into Sikhi, where we have seen that there's a lot of disconnect to Sikhi for different reasons. And we kind of want to encourage people to feel like they don't have to be pressured into Sikhi. It's kind of that personal journey that you take, and it comes in your own time, at your own pace, and just reminding people that everyone's journeys are so different, but our destination ultimately is the same, and we'll all get there if we put the work in ourselves. And like my kind of big takeaway from this podcast is the opinion thing that I said about making sure that external voices form 10% of your opinions, but everything else that you kind of gain is from your own understanding and your own research. I hope that it encourages people to go down Sikhi a different route and stop judging people for their Sikhi journeys, and kind of just look into your own Sikhi journey a lot more. So girls, leave everyone with your final thoughts, and yeah, we'll just end it there. But thank you for listening. I just want to make it clear that everything we say is with good intention. Please don't take it badly. We are still learning, and forgive us if we've said anything wrong, but also correct us.
So yeah, honestly, I agree, Sim. My final thoughts would just be to summarize everything that's been said, take that step. If you think you can't take that step for whatever reason, you don't think you're religious enough, whatever your perception is, take that step, whatever step it may be, into Sikhi, do some research, watch the YouTube vids, whatever, but take the step. That's all I'd like to say.
I think my final thoughts are just to have those open conversations. And yeah, don't feel pressured. Everyone is on their own journey. Don't feel pressured by the people around you or by society norms. Get there in your own time and at your own pace.
So this will be the final podcast of this season. And we're going to briefly talk about the podcasts that we've already done so far. So girls, do you have any favorites that you've listened to already, or was there anything that stood out to you?
I really enjoyed listening to our collaboration with Core Collective, all about empowering cause, and also there was a bit about the farmers' protests in there and other movements. As a core myself, listening to how other people relate to me and how there's a whole organisation who cater, let's say, for cause and all of our struggles and what we have to face on the daily, and not even just on the struggles, on the good things about us as well. Focusing on the positives. That was one of my favorites. I really enjoyed listening to that one. But all of them were really good, even with the Bible Jeet thing. That one I really enjoyed. Very informative. I hope everyone else enjoyed them as much as I did.
Yeah, so one of the ones that really stuck out to me, because I've always had this discussion with my family, is the big religion versus culture. And there were so many points in that one where it was like good points that you don't really think about. You normally think, oh, culture is so bad, it taints Sikhi, it ruins it. A lot of people think Punjabis drink. Punjabis are also known to be Sikh. But a good point was that it's actually stuff that we identify with. You know, when people leave that country, that's the language they speak. They come here, it's complete different culture. So we shouldn't shun it entirely. It's like, how can we adapt both and not lose part of identity when Gurmukhi is written in a form of, like, if you read Punjabi, you could practically understand it, right? So obviously you'd still need to learn Gurmukhi a little bit. So I think that was a very good point that was made, and stuff that I'd never really thought about like that before. And in general, yeah, all the podcasts were very well done. So I'm excited to see what's in store for next season of podcasts.
I mean, we work really hard on these podcasts, three of us together. I think it takes a lot to find people to do podcasts with, and then to record these podcasts, edit them, get them out. We try to do it on a weekly basis. And I think the next set of podcasts that have already been recorded are excellent, and with some great people as well that are coming out in the next few weeks. And the conversations are very open to whoever I'm discussing them with. So it's normally based on what someone wants to talk about, what someone feels is important to them. So these podcasts are open to anyone to come in and talk about something that's important to them. So obviously, if you would like to get involved, you could just reach out to any of us over Instagram, Twitter. I was going to say TikTok, but I don't know if you can message people on TikTok. And can you do that?
You can.
Okay, yeah, cool. So TikTok as well, and just let us know what you want to talk about, and then we can try and form a podcast out of it. And if there's a podcast that do you know what, I can't pick one, but a couple of podcasts that people should definitely go listen to. I would go for one of the first ones I did with Indapri about parenting in Sikhi, because that was very important, about raising your kids in a Sikh household, and how you're going to do it, and how you're going to approach your kids with Sikhi is a very important topic. And hopefully I could do one with Indapri again sometime soon, just to see how she's got on with doing that. Also, as Bhav said, the one with Bible Jeet Singh about finding happiness and gratitude, a very informative podcast. One that I did very recently with Benji Gurpreet Kaur about finding your purpose was the biggest wake up call for me, and a lot of people that had also messaged me and responded to how they felt that that podcast had helped them. So definitely listen to that one as well. But I mean, all of them have been excellent in their own way. There's one that I did with Seeking Hope and Sick Analogy about bullying, which was a very big topic at the time of recording it, following the incident in Telford. And so they all have a lot of relevance. Go over and listen to some of them. Let us know what you think of them. We're always open to knowing how we can improve them. I mean, the next set of podcasts should be fun, exciting, good topics.
A lot to look forward to, definitely. Yeah.
I'm excited, guys. Well done for all the hard work, Sim, Bab, everyone on this team.
Yeah. You too,
yeah,
guys.
I mean, do you know what? I might as well say now as well, like, you two have put a lot of work into it over the last few months, and there's a lot of things coming for us, and I actually couldn't be doing it on my own, so I'm very glad that I've appointed two beautiful young ladies to help me out with it. We've got big things coming.
I mean, hopefully we can also expand on our team as well. You know, we're not just a team of Gores. We you know, can invite everyone and anyone. So yeah, we're just looking forward to the future.